Hey guys, it's Maymay, and today on Midweek Minutes, the first thing we have to do is we have to change the name of Midweek Minutes. I've had some suggestions. One that was really cute is Midweek Moments, but here's the problem. I don't ever do minutes. I tend to do regular videos on Wednesday. So we need to change the name to my midweek segment to something else. So I'm challenging you guys to give me some names. Something like Midweek with Maymay, or I don't know, you guys are probably 10 times better than that at that than I am. So y'all help me come up with a name, and let's do this. The name I choose, I will send a stamp set to, a Trixie's Valentine stamp set. Unless you already have that one, and then we'll send you a different stamp set. So if you can come up with a great name for my middle of the week videos, and they're not going to be time related anymore, they're just going to be middle of the week videos. So if you can do that, I would appreciate it. Anyway, on to today. Okay, so this looks like a sponsor, doesn't it? It's not. This company is one we get some barbecue sauce from that is amazing, and it's made in Alabama, and it's fantastic. But they also use these super nice boxes. Super nice. And I want to make one of those chipboard books that sit around and they're so super cute. And this is the board. This is the chipboard I'm going to use. It's really cardboard, but it's really sturdy. So I'm going to take this guy apart, cut it up, and turn it into one of those chipboard books. And I'm going to take you guys along on the journey. So let's see how this turns out. Okay, so first things first, we're going to take this box apart. And it looks like it's pretty simple. It kind of folds up together like so. And I'm going to use probably a lot of this. I don't think I'll use every bit of it, but a lot of it. This is going to be my top, my base. I'm probably going to use these for sides, but I'm going to cut this all apart and then we'll get back together. Okay, so I have dissected this guy, and here's what we have come up with. Now, this piece and these pieces don't have measurements yet, and I'll tell you why in a second. We're going to do this together. But I decided I wanted my box to be 8 by 10. And I say box, but it's going to be a book. One of those book boxes that flip open. So I want it to be an 8 by 10 box. And so I cut 2 pieces at 8 by 10. For the interior of the book, I'm going to move, I don't know why I have to move this. They're the same. But anyway, for the interior of the book, I want there to be a 1/2 inch lip around the edge here. So this piece I cut at 9 inches. So I know this is the front that will stand up like this. So that'll be there. And then I'll have my pieces going back and my one across the back and then the top. But we have to do a little work on these first. So I want to show you what we have to do there. Okay, so I know the length has to be 10 inches. And this will make 10 inches. And I know it needs to be a little bit taller than I actually want the book height to be. These are 2.5 inches tall. That's how thick I'm going to make the book, is 2.5 inches. So I left this one a little bit wider, and it'll all make sense as we get going. But the first thing we have to do is we need to measure these out. And I need them to be 7 inches to be able to give me that 1/2 inch lip on the inside. However, these need to extend a little bit because I want my book to have that curve in the back. So I'm going to have to make a curve back here and decide how far out I want it to extend. And I'm thinking 1/2 inch is plenty of an extension for that curve. So what I'm going to do is take this piece and mark it at 7.5 inches, because 8 is what I would have normally done. And this is 7.5 here. Mark it on both sides. Then I'm going to take my other piece and do the same thing. I want to mark it at 7.5. Just here and here. Now I'm also going to come back down and mark it at 7, because I just thought I probably do need this so I can have a reference point for where I have to start. I'm just going to do that to be safe. Okay, now then, using a ruler, doesn't matter which one, we're just going to match these lines up. This will make sense as we get going. And because you're using cardboard, or because I'm using cardboard, these are not going to be perfect. But now I know that my lines will match up. Okay. Oops. Now, I have this glass that holds my glue bottle, and I'm going to use it to give myself the curve that I'm looking for at the back. I'm going to take this and I'm going to line it up at these two edges of the 7-inch mark. Now it extends out a tiny bit over my 1/2 inch, but I think I'm okay with that, and I'll have that same curve on both sides. So I just want to make sure it's touching on both sides there, and I'm good with that. So you just want to set yourself a guideline. So I knew I wanted 1/2 inch. I didn't want this to stick out like, you know, a whole inch past it. This way I knew where I was going. Now what we're going to do is cut this with scissors. Now in typical Maymay fashion, we're going to use this as our pattern for the other piece. That way we know they are just the same. One difference I'm going to make is I'm going to cut on the inside of this line where I cut on the outside of that line. Alright, now let's work on this binding piece. Now, I know it needs to be 10 inches long, and I want it to wrap around this and go from corner to corner. And I think that's going to be just enough, but we're going to find out like this. Because this is cardboard and I have some layers in it, what I'm going to do is score it through one thickness only. And I'm going to use this. This is actually the piece of the box that was on the side that was really thick, so I already have these two lines. That's about 1/2 inch, I do believe. They're right at a 1/2 inch apart. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to use 1/2 inch as my mark. And I'm going to open this up, and starting on that first line, I'm going to cut through the top layer only. So I'm just running through one time, and I want to show you that that's what I did. I cut through that top layer only and not into the back. Okay? Now I'm going to move over to the second line that's already there for me. Do the same thing. Just through the top line. Now I'm going to move over 1/2 inch and do another one. And I'm going to continue doing that, moving over every 1/2 inch, or 1/2 inch every time. And you can eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is going to be covered up. Now then, as you can see, we have all these cut spots on this side, but we're solid on this side. Now we want to fold all of these spots where we cut. And this will help us to start creating a bend. That's the cool thing about using cardboard, because it has those layers in it. So now see, we have this kind of half circle piece that when we sink this in 1/2 inch, it's going to fit just right. Now if it didn't fit just right, you would just trim off what you don't need. But that looks just right to me. So there you go. So now I have to make sure this is 10 inches long. And it's just enough. So I think we're in good shape. We have our sides. We have our top and bottom. We have our front. And we have our back piece. Now it's time to do some putting it together. So I'm going to go away and get some products together, and I'll be right back. Okay, so the next thing you're going to need is some of these binding strips or hinges. People call them all different things. I just call them binding strips because we're going to bind the box together with them. These are 1 inch wide, and I just cut them from some sturdy craft cardstock. And in the sake of time, I went ahead and did the cutting so I can just show you the measurements. Now I'm going to put this on my blog, and I'll put a link below so you can get it that way. But you're going to need 4 that are cut at 10 inches. So they're 1 by 10s. You're going to need 2 that are cut at 9 inches. You'll need 4 cut at 7 inches. You'll need 4 cut at 5 inches. And then you'll need 4 cut at 2.5 inches. Look at my Christmas tree. No. And you'll need 4 cut at 2.5 inches. Now what you want to do is you want to score each one of these in the middle. So they're 1 inch, so you're going to score them down the middle at 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm going to use the bigger scoreboard for this because they are longer pieces. But I'm just going to lay it in here, and then I'm going to score at 1/2 inch. Now if you can't do 1/2 inch really well like this, what you want to do is just kind of do the top portion and find your mark, and then just come underneath. So I know 1/2 inch is tough on these guys, but just go down a little bit, put your finger at the top, go back into that mark and finish. Now these little guys are really fussy, so let me show you what I do here. I just kind of push my finger to the side, press down and do it like that. That way I'm out of the way. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to apply adhesive. And I like to apply the adhesive before I fold them. Now I'm using some score tape in 1/2 inch width. That way I get it on both sides fully, okay? So let's find the edge. Alright guys, let's start putting this thing together. But warning, if you're a stickler for perfection, this may be where you want to turn this thing off, because I'm not perfect, so this could get hairy. But here we go. First things first, I'm going to go ahead and put this and the binder together. I think if we just kind of do it like this and go ahead and get started this way, we'll be good. I'm not worried about this because I'm going to cover it up anyway. So for this one, I need those longer strips that we did, which are these guys. We'll fold it, get it started on its score line, and then peel this good stuff away. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to, oh, this is so sticky. I'm going to line it up on one end. And I'm not putting the score line right at it. I'm giving it a little bit of give, like I'm hanging the score line over the edge, just about the width of the score line itself. Okay, so when I turn that over, you can see that the score line is still exposed, and we need that because we need it to be able to fold. Okay, now this piece we can just place right up against it, just like so. And now this will fold just fine. Isn't that neat how that'll do? Okay, so now let's do the other side. So I'm going to fold this guy in half. I'll get it there in a second. Okay, now we're just going to line this up. Now this end has a little divot in it, and there's nothing I can do about that, so I'm going to butt the other end up, and we'll be able to cover that with paper as we go along. Alright, now those are totally on there, and we've already got the beginning of the spine of our book started. Cool, huh? Okay, so now what we'll do, and see, I'll cover this. This won't be a big deal. We'll make this fine when we do paper on it. Let's attach the bottom and the sides. Now I want to go in here and I want to make some marks so I know where 1/2 inch is, so I can get in the right place. So I'm going to move 1/2 inch from the edge and make myself a mark, and go here and do 1/2 inch. And I'm also going to do 1/2 inch in the middle, so I know I'm in the right place. Okay, now once you've marked these, you're also going to come in 1/2 inch from the side, so you'll know where to start. So I'm going to make a mark for 1/2 inch here. And then a mark for 1/2 inch here. And I'm going to go ahead and mark all the way around while I'm doing it, because these will also sit in 1/2 inch. Now taking this 9-inch piece and this strip, I'm going to peel the backing off. And I'm just going to line this up right to the edge. On this one, I want it to go to the edge. Now, do you see I have a little bit of adhesive out here? I'm not worried about that because I'm going to cover all that with paper eventually. Okay, now this is going to sit here. So I'm going to peel this piece off. Okay. And using the marks that I've made as my guide, I'm going to pull that back just a little bit so I can sit this into place where it's going to be placed. It's right there. I'm going to hold that up. If you wiggle, just get it back in place before you adhere it down. I told you, this is not where you're going to see perfection right here. And then press. Alright, so our book's coming together. There's one part of it. I'll show you that from the side. Now let's go ahead and adhere these guys down. Now on these sides we're going to use the 7-inch binding strips we did. And this is going to go right here. Just like that. Okay. Again, we're going to place this right to the edge. Okay, so you can see I've got it right to the edge. And then I'm going to peel this other piece off. And we're going to match it up and put it in place. Okay, so we've got that piece in place. So you're starting to see it come together. All right, and now we're going to move on to this side. And line this guy up. Just watching your measurements that you made. And there you go. Now we're really starting to see it take shape. So now what I want to do is come in with those 2.5-inch binding strips, and I want to close this up together here. So I'm going to take one of those strips and do some folding. Peel these edges off. And this time we're going to wrap it around the edge. So you can go ahead and place it on one, leaving your score line in the opening, in the groove between the two pieces. And then you're going to wrap it around to the other one. Just like that. If you ever look at boxes in the store, they're made a lot like this, especially these kind of boxes. You'll see they have these little strips and things in them like this. So we're not doing far off from whatever, what the real deal is. Okay, so the next one. Now that's pretty sturdy and I'm not too worried about it, but I'm going to go ahead and put some more in here just for safekeeping. It's going to be on my desk. It's not going to get a whole lot of use, but I just want to make sure, and I'll show you, that these are really, good and snug. So I'm going to go ahead and put some in those corners. Nice, 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 nice. Okay, now what I want to do is do the same thing to the front. Where I did the double here, I want to go around the edges and put more on there. So the front and the sides. This is why you needed twice as many of those as we used in the beginning. So we're going to need our 9-inch strip, which is this one. I'm going to fold it back, peel this away. And then I'm going to place it into the bend. And burnish it in really good. That'll just help us to be sure it's good and sturdy, because you want it to last a good long while. That is really nice. Okay, so to show you up close, we have binding strips at the bottom and on the inside, and we're getting ready to bind this together. We're really getting close to being able to decorate. This is not taking that long. Okay, so we're about to do what I think is the toughest part. When we finish, it's going to look like this. See how I have this piece that wraps around the curve, and then I have this adhesive on the back. I don't want to get up close so you can see how it's snipped and put on. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and it is probably the hardest part, but if you just take your time, you can get it. What you want to do is take whatever strip that you made, your 4-inch strip, and on one side, and you want to look at which side it is. You want it to be the side that'll be wrapped around the box, leaving this side open. You want to come over here. I'm going to do it this way so you can see. And you want to put snips to the score line, not across the score line, but to the score line, about every 1/4 to 1/2 inch. The tighter the curve, the closer the snips. This is kind of like in sewing, you know, if you're doing curves or whatever. Now you want to peel the backing off. Now if you want to, you can just peel it off of part and kind of work your way around, or you can go ahead and peel it off of all of it. I'm going to go ahead and peel it off of all of it. Okay, and then we're just going to kind of bend it. Now you want to start at the bottom, and I'm just going to fold these back. I'm going to take my time and show you this, because this will be the hardest part. And eventually all of these will kind of wrap around each other. They're going to be separate for a little bit, so you just want to kind of plant the first one. Just go ahead and get it down there. Okay. And then you're going to push and plant the second ones. Now when you get to the side, you're probably going to have to pull back on the flap you cut and bring it up to that edge. You put your finger down there, you can feel it. And then each time you're going to take each flap in front of it and do the same thing. Each flap gets lined up with your curve. You just kind of turn it inward. When I get to the top, it'll make a whole lot more sense. So each flap wraps over the one before. Let me come this way. And each time, they're just kind of wrapping around, and you're just feeling back there to make sure you have it in the right curve. When you get here, it really makes sense, because you're going to bring it down, and you've just kind of used your finger to help you with those curves. Can you see that? And can you see how they lap over each other? You can see in there how one over the other, but it just kind of compresses them, and it works really well to do that, and you get that nice bend by doing those snips. Okay, hardest part of the whole thing. Now then, I'm going to go ahead and peel this off, the backer tape from both sides. And I don't know if you noticed, but I left it on the whole piece so I could pull it out when I got to this point. That way I can adhere it down at the bottom too, because I think it would just be easier to deal with one side of adhesive than two at that when I was doing that curving part. Okay, so now that I've got the backing tape off, I'm going to take my hand and put it underneath, and I'm going to press from the bottom up, wrapping our spine around. And then I'm going to reach in and burnish it down. on both sides. And I'm just burnishing that adhesive together. Now there's one thing I'm noticing about the lid. My hinge is too snug, so I'm going to make an adjustment on that. I'm going to pull this off. Okay, so you can see that I pulled that off. That hinge was just a little too tight, so we're going to rehinge it. I'm going to leave that binding strip there, and I'm going to use it to my advantage. I'm going to lay the lid in place, and then I'm going to bind it on. I think that will help it close better. So I'm going to cut another binding strip for this section. So another 10-inch. Now all of this is going to be hidden, so don't worry. You just want to make sure that your lid will close well. And that it's nice and straight. So if you have to remove it and fix it, no big deal, because you're building this. This is your box. Alright, I'm going to adhere it to that old binding strip first, because it's really well stuck down. I had to fight to get the lid off, so it's on there. Then so it's still lifting a tiny bit, but I think over time and with wear, it'll lay down some. Now I'm going to do a little bend back here. Okay, so once I made the adjustment, the lid did not want to close. So I want to show you what I did to fix that. I opened it up, and I took my my scoring blade, and I went into the edge, and I just scored it like this, right where it's going to be closing. Like so a couple times. And then I brought it back over, and I just kind of used my hand to kind of heat up that adhesive and push at the same time, and now it closes just fine. So it's closing now instead of popping open. Can you see that? Look, no pop open. So it's closing. I can't show you, if I let go it opens. So anyway, but when we put all our embellishments on it too, it's going to weight it down more. But just use your hand to kind of heat that binding up and get it to where it'll lay down smooth. You can make it do anything because it's just, you know, a paper product. So I hope you enjoyed this part, and then part 2 we'll have on Friday for Freestyle Friday. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.